So in today's video we'll be looking at some 6 markers for AQA A-level Biology and how to structure them, how to answer them, and what to do when you're stuck. So this question asks us to compare and contrast the structure of starch and cellulose. So with these type of questions, you want to make a little plan for yourself with the similarities and the differences. So you need to remember we're talking about the structure here, and since we're doing a 6 marker, we want to have 3 points, roughly 3 points for each section. So we'll have 3 points for each section. Now just think about structure. So what things come to your mind when you talk about structure? Talk about bonds, talk about what it's made out of, and other things as well. So it's good to brainstorm your ideas. Obviously this needs to be very, very quick in an actual exam. I'm just showing this for demonstration purposes. So let's think about similarities. And when we think about bonds, we look at starch and cellulose. Okay, now we realize that both of them have glycosidic bonds. Okay, now we look at what they're made out of, and okay, we know that starch has alpha glucose, whilst cellulose has beta glucose. So already we've secured 2 good marks. Now for the next similarity, let's think about what they're made out of again. What they're made out of. Oh, both of them are made out of CH and O. So okay, that's another similarity. And now we thought about the bond, we thought about what it's made out of, and look at starch and glucose again. Think about what they actually are. They are both polysaccharides. So that will give you a mark. And now for the last 2 differences, think about again structure. Always bring your thoughts back to the question. So structure. Now let's think about the structure of one of these molecules. Okay, let's think about starch now. Let's think. Starch has what? It has alpha glucose, and the alpha glucose is helical, it's coiled. What about cellulose? Okay, no, it's straight. Okay, so that's another structural point that we can say. Starch is coiled. And for the final difference, let's think about the structure of cellulose now. Cellulose has fibrils, and starch does not. So this part you want to include in your actual answer. With the answer, you just want to summarize what you've said in your plan. So to write the answer, we just want to bring all the points together and write them down in a coherent way in sentences. So we want to say that they both are polysaccharides and contain CH and O in their molecule. Also both have glycosidic bonds. Now for the differences, you want to make sure you have this little detail, which is because we've been asked to compare, we want to make sure we don't just state, as I wrongly did here, we don't just want to state starch is coiled. We want to say and cellulose is not. So we don't just state a fact. We want to bring it all back to the question which asks us to compare and contrast. So we want to say that starch is coiled, but cellulose is not. Then let's say cellulose fibrils and starch does not. Finally, I want to say go back to our plan, and we just only want to say starch has alpha glycosidic bonds, whilst cellulose has beta glycosidic bonds. Okay, so for the second question, we are asked to describe the light independent reaction of photosynthesis. So before we start anything, just as a reminder to ourselves, what forms in the light dependent reaction will help us to understand what actually happens in the independent reaction. So in the light dependent reaction, we know that ATP and reduced NADP forms. Okay, so we know that we need to use up these two molecules in order to, in the next reaction, so in this reaction, light independent reaction. So first we want to have a plan. Again, a quick little plan that will take us a minute or two, definitely not more than 2 minutes. And so this is something that you need to know. So with the light independent reaction, what we start with is ribulose bisphosphate, and this is, first thing to remember, that it's 5 carbon, a 5 carbon molecule, and it gets converted into 2 glycerol phosphate molecules. And in the exam, you want to make sure to write the whole thing. Obviously, I'm being lazy and can't bother to write the whole thing, but this is 3 carbons each. And because we've gained 1 carbon, as you can see, because in total this will be 6 carbons, but this is 5 carbons. Normally with these sort of reactions, when we're dealing with, a carbon being added or removed, we know that carbon dioxide most of the time is going to be involved. And now also, very important thing to mention, an enzyme called rubisco is what catalyzes this reaction to actually happen. Okay, now after this, 2 TP molecules, triphosphate molecules, form, and these are also 3 carbon molecules. And now, what did we mention before? We mentioned that in the light dependent reaction we formed these 2 things. So for this reaction to actually happen, it needs energy. So this is when 2 ATP are hydrolyzed into ADP plus the phosphate group. There you go. And also with this reaction, what happens is that since the glycerol phosphate is actually reduced into the triphosphate, that means that something else needs to be oxidized. So this is where the reduced NADP comes in, and that just becomes NADP. So after this has happened, we know that the 2 triphosphate, they have 2 options. Either they can be formed into other useful organic compounds such as glucose and other things to be used later. And since this is a cycle, it goes back into ribulose bisphosphate, which also uses energy. So every time we use energy, it's going to be ATP being hydrolyzed into ADP and a phosphate group. So this cycle, also called the Calvin cycle, is something that you definitely want to know. You want to know, the basics of what's being formed, what's being added. And once you fully understand it, it's not as difficult as it may seem. Okay, so after you've drawn this quick plan, which by the way might even get you marks if you've done it clearly, you can start to write your actual answer, which the examiner will definitely mark. So first we look back in the cycle and we say that so carbon dioxide is combined with ribulose bisphosphate to produce glycerol phosphate using rubisco as the enzyme. Then in our next stage we have the 2GP being converted into TP. But instead of converted, you should definitely say that it has been reduced. GP reduced into TP. And you want to make sure that you write the whole name of the compound instead of just the abbreviations. And after this, we would definitely want to say that, I forgot this one step, we would definitely want to say that we use using reduction, so the reduced NADP being oxidized into NADP and using energy. And just since we said using before, you can just say and ATP is hydrolyzed. Okay. The next step would be to write the final bit of the cycle, which is the phosphate is converted to ribulose phosphate. And this is using energy from hydrolyzed ATP. And this should get you all 6 marks. Thank you for watching.